Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Game week 6 is fast approaching, and I am very much looking forward to watching my Salah captaincy haul at 5:30 on a Saturday, depending where you are, of course. Short one for me today, just solving your problems the same as last week. If you could consider subscribing, we are so close to 3,000, I'd be greatly appreciative. In terms of the problems we're going to be solving today, all are applicable to Wildcard 6, and even if you're not on Wildcard 6, the first few are certainly helpful for you. Nothing more needs to be said. Like I said, it's a short one, so let's get into it. The first thing we're going to be looking at is two cheap forwards, two which are very popular on the wildcard, and two which in general are facilitating a lot of squads, whether on wildcard or not, and that is Chris Wood and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, I'm becoming really comfortable in the selection of Chris Wood, and I just think he is right now a brilliant pick at 6.1. What we've seen from Forest so far has been really impressive. Obviously, in the big games, they've shown themselves to be adequate defensively to certainly hold out some of the bigger sides and ensure that they can't, put 5-6 past them, like I think Arsenal are going to do to at least one of Leicester or Arsenal, but we'll touch on that in a bit. But in terms of going forward, specifically for FPL, what we've seen from Chris Wood has been fantastic. I mean, he's not like an Ollie Watkins of old where he's really running a lot of channels. As opposed to that, he's more of an Ollie Watkins of new, very different players, but I specifically mean Unai Emery changed the type of striker he is. He wanted him very central, in and around the box, and really on the end of stuff. And Chris Wood really is that, right? That specific thing that I just talked about, he is that. He's looking to be on the end of stuff. He's in the middle. It's already geared for him. Like, you don't see Hudson-Odoi coming inside too much and looking to get off too many shots of his. You don't see Hudson-Odoi looking to penetrate that last line. A lot of it is just focused in that 4-2-3-1 on getting Wood in the game, in and around the box, and then leveraging his finishing and just general skill set from there. With him on penalties, with the fixtures being good, with a real feel-good factor around Forest, which I think is always helpful because momentum is a difficult thing to stop. I just think at 6-1, he's such a fantastic option. Whether you're on a wildcard or not, I really would be considering him. And then the other alternative to him, coming in at 0.2 cheaper, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, I think the fixtures that he has are certainly better. Woods are good, but I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's are certainly better. The only thing with him is I'm not sure I trust Everton as much as I trust Forest right now. I think given they're getting some of their injured players back, especially some of their better ones like Branthwaite, I think that will help the side overall in general. And to be honest, they can't really get too much worse than they have been. And it's not like their attacking has really been the problem either, right? They've still been able to create chances. Had Calvert-Lewin's finishing been a little bit better this season, honestly, he could find himself second or third in terms of the amount of points scored by a forward. Probably third because Jackson's got quite a few. So yeah, I'd really look at one of these two at least as facilitating options. Look, I love Havertz and Watkins in isolation. I just think in terms of squad structures at the moment, you have to forego one. So you have perfect replacements here. Certainly better than João Pedro, in my opinion. And the other thing, coming back to it, is just look at that comment from Nuno, right, his manager. When someone's going to come out and publicly say something like that be that complimentary. When you've got someone of Taiwai's standard on the bench, I mean, he's a really solid player, and he gave a lot of Premier League centre backs a handful of a game, but he really looks to be out of favour now. So I would definitely consider lumping someone Chris Wood if you can afford him and he's right for your squad structure. The second thing to have a look at is captaincy for game week 6. As I spoke about in the Everything You Need to Know video, the preview, I think this is a fantastic spot to exploit, and I would recommend you go and watch that and a more in-depth version of that should you wish to understand why I think this is such a good spot to exploit, or you could read my thread alternatively on Twitter, and my X is linked in. But going back to a more short fire style, well, there's a few things that I'd like to consider about Haaland. What will the Newcastle approach be? Does he choose a similar approach to the one he used at AC Milan away in the Champions League last year? Does he go Gordon left wing, Jacob Murphy on the right, and then a midfielder, Joe Linton? I don't know what midfielder he used exactly. I think he actually used Joe Willock, but I imagine now he would go Joe Linton, Bruno Guimaraes, and Sandro Tonali. That's a midfield with serious power, serious engines. It's pretty rough as well. And I do think that City, without De Bruyne and Rodri, are a little bit weaker mentally. Now, I want to be careful saying that because, look, I don't know any of the players, but just what I pick up, I guess, from the TV, I think De Bruyne and Rodri are huge personalities and huge winners in that side. And I think without them, personality-wise, if Newcastle could rough them up in the first 20 minutes bouncing from James's Park, well, then we could really have a game. And I think that midfield will have a lot to do with it if they can constantly win their duels and be super aggressive. But also, if Isak is out, well, they'll probably go a bit more defensive and really try and leverage maybe like one of Barnes or Gordon up top and that huge transitional threat loss through Isak, they'll try and replace it through those two, and I think they'll generally just go even more defensive, which is what I'd like. I'd like for them to go compact and deep. The other thing is, what's the lineup Pep's going to use? I mean, if he uses Foden in the middle, I actually think that's worse for Haaland because you have a guy who's going to look to shoot more as opposed to supply him. I don't think he will. I think Foden will be on the bench again, but regardless, without De Bruyne and Rodri, definitely a weaker side. It'll be the first game without him as well, both of them. So I think maybe they take a little bit of time to adjust to that dynamics, especially given it's the early kickoff. I think scoring a brace is maybe like, I don't think he'll get a hat trick. So a brace maybe at the top of his range, and anything below that, if someone told me he scores 9 points, I think it makes a lot of sense to go Saka or Salah to exploit the upside, assuming you own all three. That's where the real upside is. So for me, I think it's a good week to go against him, calculated risk. So I really do think that Arsenal have shown me enough in their attacking patterns. Sure, like you can say, oh, they haven't scored that many goals. But look at the conditions, right? 10 men against City for half the game, got dominated for the other 35. Spurs, they were Riceless and Odegaardless, and they were Odegaardless at City. They'll have way less of an effect against the likes of Southampton and Leicester, respectively. So I do think I've seen enough for me to say that I think they're going to put maybe 4 or 5 past at least one of Leicester or Southampton. Now, with Saka's captain individually, it's really interesting because in the past, he hasn't been someone who's put up those massive mega hauls that Haaland and Salah has. However, I do think he's shifting into becoming slightly more of a goal-orientated player and could actually be a flat-track bully in terms of the goals he scores because now he has such dominion over that right space, that whole right space, right? Given that Odegaard's not there, I think so much will go through him. His ball striking really impressed me when he comes inside, and he's so good at manufacturing that type of shot anyway. I do really think that Saka could be in and around the point. So it's which perspective do you choose to take? The new one where he looks a little bit better, or do you take the older one where he hasn't been able to haul huge like some of the others? Personally, I would actually lean a bit more towards the latter. Like I said, I think it's a very good opportunity to exploit going elsewhere as opposed to Haaland. So even if I didn't own Salah, I think I wouldn't mind punting on Saka and choosing the narrative that he's a bit sharper and a bit more of a goal threat now, and the system doesn't shackle him as much. Like he doesn't stay as wide now. So I think I'd be happy to go there. Before I was probably Salah, Haaland, Saka. I think now I've reversed the Haaland and Saka to have him second. So I think it's fine on a whim if you don't have Salah, and even if you do, you can still go there. For me though, with how weak Wolves look, their game model, the away theory I had about Salah getting more isolated situations away from home, the illness running through the Wolves camp, how good Liverpool look in terms of their chance creation, penalties, 90 minutes. For me, Salah, especially given that loads of wildcard 6 managers won't have him, I think he really is the one where you look to just exploit the upside. I mean, it works out, and let's just say Haaland and Mbeumo, that's the example I use, get 10 points. Everything else held constant. Salah gets a haul, minimum 15 points up, right? And I think that's such a nice cushion in this week, especially when everyone's wildcarded. And you can punish them elsewhere. Like a lot of them won't have Kai, and if you have Kai and Salah, you could be in the money. So for me, I think Salah is the biggest upside opportunity to exploit, the biggest one we've had so far, maybe, definitely in terms of captaincy. And I would have Saka second now. Assisting with Arsenal, the reason I say that Raya is not an option for me, he's not fourth or he's not fifth, is because I'd have Saka, Kai, and Gabriel as a top 3. I'd have Saliba at fourth because I think you get a bit more box threat and you don't limit yourself to not getting the 4.5 keeper, which I think always reigns supreme. And the reason I wouldn't have him fifth is, even if I had 2, I wouldn't want to be blocked out of getting one of, like, let's say, Kai, Gabriel, Saka, or Saliba eventually. So for me, I wouldn't even have them. I explained it so much in the last video. The 4.5 million goalkeepers have always proved to be better value. Just one, at least, across the entire season. This season so far, it's Sanchez. And I just think you don't need to block an Arsenal spot and take a route that hasn't worked historically. Every single year, it's the 4.5. And especially with the changes to the bonus structure, can't imagine why that trend would change. So for me, I'm definitely looking to fade Raya. And if I was on a wild card, I would do that as well. And if I was you, I would do that as well. I obviously spoke about how Saliba's certainly a box threat. So is Kai. Not to the extent Gabriel is as well, but with their quality of set piece taking and the fact that they're good aerial threats, I think they're going to score goals from corners at some point during the season, hopefully for those who get them sooner rather than later. And I say God, but like universal, high power, whatever you choose. That injury rumor that's flying about, it'll be touch and go for the weekend, right? Is this you could just like, this is a perfect opportunity to even just use this as an excuse to fade him. I really would consider it if you haven't done so already. I think the ceiling will be limited in the next 2-3 games at least, because he's not facing sides where they're gonna face a huge volume of shots, and also the attackers, or they'll likely score more goals. So I think that puts even further down the bonus point system. I really, really dislike the selection. Obviously, if you go there, good luck to you, but I just really dislike. So on Wildcard 6, I've seen a very template midfield of Semenyo, Roger, Saka, the fourth being Mbeumo, and then the fifth being one of the other four. The reason I have Mbeumo here is just because of the price tag, and he's a similar range, just in case you wanted to get rid, but I wouldn't do so. So really, for that fifth spot, it's Bruno, Diaz, Eberechi, Eze, and Palmer. Now, I don't love any of them, right? But I definitely dislike the Eze pick at the moment. I think even though he's 6.9, you're probably going to go and spend the money elsewhere, probably really stack that defense, and it becomes difficult in terms of exit routes. And the other thing is, I don't love Everton away with Branthwaite back and then Liverpool at home. I just don't think the fixtures are the greatest at the moment, so I would consider fading him on a wild card. Bruno, I understand because the fixtures are so good. However, I'd really be looking at Rashford or Garnacho as of now, even though the minutes are worse, just because I think Bruno's open play threat hasn't been there to the extent you would like. And even if it is, United have just an overall finishing deficiency, which I think significantly declines his value as an asset, which really leaves Palmer or Diaz. Now, obviously, there's a huge price difference. Now, Diaz, I still find a really, really tricky one. I think it is largely unsustainable for pretty much anyone to deliver at this rate when the number of expected minutes are, say, around 68 each and every game. I would, however, say that he looks brilliant. And given that Arne Slot's replicated a somewhat similar role for the left winger at Liverpool as he did at Feyenoord, which is quite output orientated, given his demonstration of ball striking and pretty decent finishing this season, to say the least, yeah, he could definitely still return. I just don't think he's going to do it at the level he's currently doing it at. And that's just something to note, but good option. Palmer, I would also say is a good option. I just trust him a lot. I wonder if the expected minutes are slightly reduced, given he would like to give João Felix some game time. But when he's playing at the top of the box with penalties, running off Jackson, as he has done so many times in the past when Jackson drops in, yeah, I think that is a guy who's got a really high floor and a high ceiling. Probably not as high of a ceiling, or it's not as realistic to reach a ceiling compared to last year, but a really high floor. So for me, it would be one of Diaz or Palmer and then make adjustments elsewhere as opposed to Bruno or Eze. Finally, I thought I would show you a wildcard draft with Salah because I've barely seen any of them. If I'm going to bang on about the captaincy opportunity of Salah, we'll probably make a draft for him. You'll see the front eight is the exact same as mine is. Yeah, look, I just think my team's in a really good place right now, hence why the draft is the same. I mean, Rodgers and Semenyo are very self-explanatory. DCL has been talked about, and the other four are the big boys. And then in defense, look, Sells and Pinnock could actually be like Ola Aina and Flecken. I don't mind that if you think Brentford's save volume will be really high compared to Sells. Personally, I prefer the goal threat of Pinnock in defense, but I wouldn't mind it the other way around. Gabriel for the obvious reasons. Greaves for the obvious reasons. I mean, starting 4.0. I prefer Ipswich defense to Southampton. The fixture are also really nice. Liz, I've got there because he's a bit of a collector's item. He's not even in the game anymore. So if you've got him, at least you know his price is locked. So I don't mind keeping him. Guardiola I spoke a lot about in the Everything You Need to Know video. So you can go and check that out. Just for the one player, if I had one player that I could get right now, it would be him. That I don't have. It wouldn't be... I own a lot of the big boys, but like it wouldn't be Palmer, it wouldn't be Bruno, it wouldn't be Mbeumo, it would be Oscar Gvardiol. And then finally to complete it is Mazraoui. I think United's fixture run after 8 is really nice. Ideally, I would have Matthias de Ligt here, but I didn't have enough money because I think he's looked like a huge aerial threat from set pieces. But Mazraoui's got enough open play threat. United have a good run for quite a prolonged period of time. Him and Pinnock can play alternative weeks when need be, especially if one's out of form. I can just play, or one side out of form, I can just play the other consistently. So yeah, for me, this team is so strong. I think the upside in 6 is immense. Gabriel and Pinnock set and forget. I think the defense is set and forget, right? The only real spot I see, 2 spots I think, thinking meh, is Semenyo and Calvert-Lewin if neither of them catch fire, and also given Semenyo's fixture runs very short. So I'm looking at Semenyo to McNeil here. Obviously, if you have the money spare, you can also go to ESR in like 8 or 9. But, you know, you could always sell Salah. You could always sell Havertz and then reinvest the money. And that's what I like. Easy exit routes with 2 free transfers. And that's not too many, especially when you can be offered 5. So that is all for today. Like I said, super quick one today. I don't really feel the need to go over everything again and again and again. You can just go and check out my other videos if you want a bit more depth and just a variety of other things that weren't discussed in this video. Again, so close to 3,000 subscribers, so if you could subscribe, I would be greatly appreciative. The best of luck to you this week, especially if you're captaining Salah or even Saka, because I imagine you'll be under 100% EO. So enjoy it. I expect a very, very good Saturday of FPL in particular, and I shall see you on the other side for transfer plans on Sunday. Goodbye, and have a great, great weekend.